Today's video will be about outlines. I'll tell you what kind of paints to use for outlines, what kind of cartridges, how to do it so that they don't smudge. Okay, we'll have theory and practice. Let's not waste time. Let's go. Let's start with paint. There are three types of paint: contour, universal, and for dense coatings. When working with outlines, we only use contour paint. Certainly some individuals do not possess contour paint readily available. Then you can utilize universal paint, which is appropriate for both thick coatings and contours. However, there is also paint specifically designed for thick coating, which is not at all suitable for contours due to the small dispersion of paint particles. This type of paint is intended for dense and uniform coating. When we apply this paint, it penetrates the skin and moves around slightly. Generally, we use paint for contours or, as a precaution, for universal types of work. It is advisable to choose black pigment paint based on reviews or budget. In essence, there is a wide range of paints available in the market. They handle their tasks quite adequately. When buying paint, we always look at the tube to see what we're buying, because on the front of the tube or somewhere in the description, it will definitely say what this black pigment is for, whether it's for dense coverage or if it's only for outlining or if it's universal. So we carefully read the description of what we're buying, and of course we buy it and work with it. Regarding the needles, there are three types: liner, shader, and magnum, or simply magnum, which are round in shape during tattooing. We don't have magnum family as they're only for thick paints, definitely not for contours. For the outlines, we have round liner and round shader left. For small lines, I use round liner 3 and 5. 0.25 or 0.30 configuration. In terms of sharpening, there is either a long taper or just a taper, meaning a long or sharp sharpening or a dull one. It doesn't matter personally for my tasks. And for thick, dense contours, I use a round shader, which comes in 9, 14, and 18. As for the needle thickness, I use 0.35 for the round shader. And as for the sharpening itself, it can be either dull or sharp, but it doesn't matter to me. You should see for yourself which configurations are more suitable for your work and your style. Regarding manufacturers, all the manufacturers I've encountered, I've tested Chinese ones and well-known ones, that is, reputable companies. In essence, all needles fulfill their purpose. We simply consider our budget, assess the amount of money we have available, and purchase specific brands to use naturally for our overall personal growth. We must experiment with various price ranges of these needles. Perhaps some extremely costly ones will be suitable, or we can even create makeshift ones. The crucial factor is that all cartridges I utilize in my profession have membranes, since the ink will not travel up the needle into the machine. Now we shall discuss the equipment. You can create equipment in any desired manner, whether through induction, foam, or other means. Induction, being more forceful, delivers a sharper impact to the skin, resembling a whip, resulting in a much improved contour. But you can adapt and perform all this on the rotor. The key is that the eccentricity on the rotor must be at least 3.5. If it's below eccentric 3.5, it'll just stroke the skin. So it's too soft to go, and there won't be enough punch from the leather to pierce and make a proper contour. So we take 3.5 or 4 and enjoy life without knowing any sorrow. You can take any equipment on a budget, as all cars now work well in both the low price range and the high price range. We can choose any car and work with it. The voltage is purely individual. When I started earlier, I always had such stupid thoughts in my head, like what voltage, who works, how, what. Having the freedom to choose any equipment and car on a budget allows us to fully enjoy life and avoid any unnecessary sorrow or worries. It's a truly liberating experience. In the end, all this time was wasted on the wrong questions. The only question here is how to customize the equipment I use to my liking. Because you can control the contours at a very low voltage and at a very high voltage, it all depends on the motor skills of your hand. In the next video, there will be a practical blog where I will be doing a contour at a very low voltage. At this voltage, people make vapes, and at a very high voltage, the car is ready to take off into space. The main thing here is 2 points. Check out the little car you're working with, because the manufacturer has already taken care of it in advance and wrote in the instructions at which voltages a particular task is performed. And then you have to apply all of this knowledge and techniques to your own hands and improve your hand motor skills. And only in this combination will you get a good contour. So go ahead and pick the equipment that suits you and fits like a glove. As for the departure, the protrusion should be at least 2 millimeters because if it is less, the skin will simply not be pierced again. Moreover, this is strictly individual for each body part. For example, there will be one protrusion on the forearm, and I don't know, on the same forearm, but from the lower side, it will be a completely different story. That's why we make it at least 2 millimeters and maybe even more, and we don't immerse the needle in the nozzle. Now there will be a schematic picture. We take the needle and lead it, so it turns out we immerse it in the skin and lead it. But here, you see, we have a plastic part of the nozzle. We don't press it into the skin like this because we simply won't see how deep the needle is immersed behind the plastic nozzle. It's very easy to damage it, very easy to blur the contours. In general, this is a way to make mistakes. So we take out the needle and visually gauge how deep to insert it and lead. So we use a protrusion of at least 2 millimeters and do not insert the needle straight into the skin up to the plastic tip, but visually control its immersion. Taking into account the various body parts we're working on, now, at what angle should I insert the needle into the skin? The most ideal option is 45 degrees, but it's not always possible because there are tattoos in very inconvenient parts of the body when it's uncomfortable for both the artist and the client. And of course, you won't be able to follow this contour perfectly at 45 degrees, so sometimes you can go up to 90 degrees. In general, you need to look at each specific case, each specific work, and adjust in the moment of the actual work. The most important thing is not to make too small of an angle because then the needle will catch and tear the skin, and nothing good will come out of it. There will be injuries, blurs, and so on. So, 45 degrees is the minimum. You can go higher, but you need to specifically look at the specific work and the area of the body where it's being done. All of this comes with practice, so let's not freak out. And most importantly, let's not mess up the igloo. How do you make a line of different widths? That is fairly straightforward. Let us assume we select one needle with a particular configuration, such as 5RS for example purposes. And we need to go to 3RL to have a transition from thick to less thick to thin. So we take like 5 R's, right? We put it into the skin and we go, just like that, swinging it out onto the street. It's like a pendulum, you know? And by doing that, the line starts to narrow a bit and it becomes more jerky, you know, like on-off, if you get what I mean. Then we take a smaller configuration and we insert the needle into the same strip again like a pendulum and we keep going. And then we swing it out onto the street again and that's it. So we have this smooth transition from a thicker contour to a somewhat thinner one without all that stuff. You know, like I have a nice smooth transition on my fingers, but in real life, it will not be like that. It will be a smooth swing out because the thick needle came out of the skin and we smoothly guide the new needle along the pendulum, guiding it. If we place it here with an axe and leave, then we will have a leak in this location where we placed it, indicating that there will be a spreading mess. And another important point is the stretching of the skin, how to stretch it correctly. Personally, I stretch the skin and it ends up being in 3 spots. I drive with my right hand, I am right-handed, I work with my right hand, and here I have a car. Let's visualize that here is a car, and here is already a tattoo. I stretch the skin with these fingers, the index fingers and the thumbs. This is my initial point of contact, this is the second one. When I establish contact with a person's body, I also apply pressure to the skin by using this specific part of my hand. My skin is splitting in 3 directions, forming a triangle shape on different parts. It's like a triangle on these areas. And I repeat it with my hands. So I stretch the skin in that particular direction, and she is fully stretched out as much as possible on that skin flap we are currently working on. You can essentially apply it to any part of your body. Our limbs are already naturally stretched to the maximum, of course. Not stretched on the stomach, that is. It's definitely on the stomach. You have to set things up properly. And of course, you need to put in less effort for this finiteness because they are already stretched to the maximum, as I have said before. For a tattoo on a difficult body part like the ribs or hypothetically on the back, the client should stretch themselves to accommodate it and ensure a successful outcome. So if we're working, he should reach out his hand, lie down and stretch, and we'll stretch too. And if, for example, it's the back, then I personally tattoo backs. I have the client sit on a chair. They sit, let's say, in this position, and that's how I stretch the back, the upper part of the back. So the client should help in the work, so don't be shy. We tell him there how to turn his hand, how to do something else, so that it's as comfortable as possible for you to work. Let's discuss common mistakes when dealing with control. This is our area of expertise. That is when we dug excessively deep, entered the hypodermis or the layer of fat, whichever is more convenient. And we had the paint spread through the capillaries, or it turned out all smudged. You can see it right away while working, how you're going, bam. And it turned out like a varicose mesh. It's not varicose veins, it's your paint spreading through the capillaries. Or just go with the flow. So when a person doesn't follow the contour exactly, but instead leans to the side, it throws the needle completely off track instead of going straight along the line like it should. And then he will come crawling, then do not bother. So when they did not hit the correct area of the skin, meaning they did not penetrate the dermis, everything remained on the surface in the epidermis. And during the healing process, all of that pigment gradually fades away, leaving us with completely unmarked skin. But that's no biggie, it can be fixed. It's all solvable with some tweaking. Interrupting is much scarier, and it really messes up the skin. It's when you go back and forth, walking around inexperience on this line, and in the end, you make a scar there. Of course, you can heal it all, but you have to be like, I don't know, a healing maestro. You have to constantly wash it, take very good care of the tattoo, and then maybe there won't be a scar. Well, of course, there's no 100% guarantee, so we don't interrupt, we don't mess it up, we don't finish it off, okay? It's fine, alright, because it can be fixed with a correction, but the main thing is not to mess up the skin so that we don't have a scar left. Another mistake I can mention is when you run out of paint in your little nose. It is all due to carelessness and inexperience, so every time we should take it, draw some line right away, rinse the little nose in this water, fill it with paint again because, by the way, another problem can arise from this. When lymph accumulates in the nose if it is not rinsed properly and promptly after each use. This can lead to discomfort and potential health issues. So like, we're working with skin here, injecting pigment into it. Our skin is bleeding and lymph is being released. And in response, it transpires that the needle takes lymph into its small nose. Therefore, it transpires that if you do not rinse your nose, ultimately you also contribute lymph to your paint cap. And ultimately, it is no longer concentrated paint for outlines, but rather a liquid that is a combination of paint and lymph. As a result, our outlines will also have gaps. The cartridge can, of course, become clogged with various substances such as paper towels or a round cotton disc. If this happens, it is possible to clean it, but a different needle will be required, similar to how knives are cleaned. However, caution must be exercised to avoid smearing the cartridge pusher with a dirty glove. It is advisable to perform these tasks wearing new gloves or to replace the clogged cartridge entirely. This approach will yield better results. Additionally, some individuals may clog the cartridge with Vaseline. It is important to be mindful of these considerations in order to maintain optimal performance of the cartridge. Individuals use Vaseline, present their finest line in the world, and ultimately all of this Vaseline is extracted with a needle into the cartridge. And then we go to the party, but there's no room for more people there because it's already packed like sardines. So for Vaseline, you actually need not just a cup of water, but a warm cup of water, which of course will dissolve the Vaseline due to its temperature. It will quickly wash out from there, and that's it. Then we just grab some paint and outline it again, and everything's fine. You can also include psychological barriers when people are simply afraid, I don't know, to hold a machine in their hands, or especially beginners encounter this when people just freeze. They have work ahead, need to get it done, at a loss. Well, this can only be cured, don't know whether to go to a psychologist or work through all this on your own to drive it away somehow. The main thing is not to be afraid because nobody in this world started making perfect tattoos right away. You were born straight and started doing tattoos. No way, that's not a thing. Every craftsman has their own tricks of the trade. Particularly at the beginner level, do not be hesitant and acquire tattoos, and most importantly, we rectify them if we make any errors or mess up during the process. And now let's suppose if, like, we made an error. Okay, it happens. If, for example, we create a conditional drawing, then you can easily take this drawing, if it's an outline, simply take a thicker outline and rectify our smudge, or adjust the curvature of the line and so on and so forth, and make the necessary corrections to ensure a satisfactory outcome. If it is a color job, then all the pigment is simply supported by another pigment and it simply will not bleed there, because it has a fence between them that is made of another pigment and acts as a barrier to prevent bleeding. Only here can such deceit occur. Fix this unevenness with a thicker border. We had a good time, all was fine. You can also use these capillary meshes or something else to highlight any irregularities, if of course this particular drawing allows it. If the drawing is perfectly smooth without contours, fillings or shadows, then everything is solved with a thicker outline. If the drawing already implies shadows, colors and so on, then all of this can be hidden in the shadows and other shades. In other words, all of this can be easily corrected. This applies to the mistakes of the artist, but there can also be mistakes made by the client. It is necessary to convey to the client that they should not go to the bathhouse, steam, and do all the other things, because healing is also very important. If you have made a good line or a good coloring and the client simply goes and neglects it, starts doing their own things, then they completely ruin the work. And this must be communicated to the client, as it is their time, their money, their, by the way, painful sensations, as they will come for a correction. I don't know if it will be possible to correct it or not, so they will still have to endure the pain. So let's get this across to the person properly right away, and so that this never happens again, let's move on to the practical part. I'll be outlining on this rose and show you how I do it, what needles I use in my work, and in general, I'll talk about hand dexterity because it's difficult to explain off the bat what I do with my hands. It's better to adjust to the work right away and give comments in parallel. Our leather is just regular Chinese leather, 3mm thick, not very thick, so we make the needle protrusion 2mm, but you can make it a little bit more. If we make it even bigger, then there's a chance of puncturing the artificial leather. I use the Hygiene soldier machine at work, and the brand of cartridges doesn't really matter because they all more or less work fine. Right now I just translated a rose, translated it using a regular transfer gel. Typically they translate it onto synthetic leather either through gel transfer or using some form of antiperspirant. And they dry it with a hairdryer or leave it for a day. In the end, it can really dig into the artificial skin and then you just can't rub off those contours. In order to prevent the occurrence of this situation and to ensure that the work is carried out in a clean manner, I have just finished the translation. Now I will proceed to quickly outline everything using a number 1, which may be slightly crooked in certain places, but the exact alignment is not the main focus at this stage. The primary objective is to solidify the overall sketch. Subsequently, on a work surface that is properly secured, I will proceed to carefully create the contours. Let's begin the process. I have now secured our rose and I will proceed to outline it while providing a detailed explanation of each step. For the smaller contours, I will utilize a 5RL needle. The specific manufacture of the needle is not of significant importance as they are all generally similar. To outline the thin leaves located behind the rose, I will use a 5RL 0.30 needle. This needle size is suitable for achieving the desired level of precision and detail. I will outline the rose with a 9 round shader, because it's in the foreground, so the lines must be bolder, bigger. I'm performing a takeoff in this manner, and I am applying Vaseline to ensure a smooth landing, enabling me to clean the synthetic leather effectively afterwards. Threading the needle. And so on and so forth, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. And it is convenient for me to lead this line to myself with some small notches. Specifically, of course, I can lead them from myself. It was more convenient for me to lead this line almost at a 90-degree angle, not at a 45-degree angle. This way I have better control and precision over the positioning. The 90-degree angle allows for a more accurate alignment with the desired direction, ensuring that the line is straight and aligned properly. This is crucial for maintaining the integrity and functionality of the line during the process. This is artificial leather. It's lying on our table. It's like a clean sheet of paper, so there's no need to clutter up the machine or adjust to the client somehow. Let's say there was a back or an arm. Our arm is a cylinder. Let's say the client is sitting with the skin stretched. Naturally, we need to adjust, crawl under, so to speak, insert the machine like this, or somehow like this. So it's strictly tailored to each job. Right now, I don't need to adjust anything because it's just lying flat on the table. So I take it at almost a 90-degree angle and draw a line. Of course, I'll change the angle for other lines and comment on it. Actually, there's no specific pill or rule that I follow, it's just how I do it, and everything will be okay. Unfortunately, there's no one-size-fits-all solution here. You have to adjust specifically for each task, one way or another. The primary thing is not to make the angle less than 45 degrees because it will simply snag the skin. Even artificial leather will cling, and real leather will be like getting hooked on a fishing hook. Now I'm driving a big strip in the middle. I brought her to myself, and I can also guide her away from myself. It's all purely in terms of mechanics and how convenient it is to draw a certain line. I will guide these veins already from myself. Of course, I can lead them to myself. At this moment, I am capable of leading the side contour. I descend downwards and execute a turn towards the side direction, confidently navigating the path ahead. I'm not in a hurry, I'm keeping the car along the line, and I have no immediate plans to change my current situation. Let's imagine a line in front of us, and I keep the car exactly along this line. That is, I can hold it like this, I can hold it like this, I can hold it like this. It doesn't matter. The main thing is not to tilt it to the right or to the left, because then the needle will hit us sideways. Yes, we will draw this line, but we will also add pigments to the edge of the line, so we will have a line and here a smudge or something else will form. That is, it will already be a flaw, so we always draw along the line, no matter at what angle. The main thing is not less than 45 degrees, because that would compromise the accuracy of our drawing. We must ensure precise alignment with the line to avoid any deviations. We never veer off course, we never knock over the needle. To properly lay this line, I entered the old line that was previously established. We maintain a strict adherence to the designated path, ensuring precision and accuracy. Our commitment to staying on track is unwavering, guaranteeing a successful outcome every time. So, I enter into the old groove and then start to come out of it and transition into the new groove, gradually adjusting and adapting to the different rhythm and flow. If you do not do this, simply come in, place a period here, promptly take it from here and proceed. When used on artificial leather, it will have a satisfactory look, but when used on real leather, it will be seen as a flaw or blemish. During the needle insertion process, I carefully place a dot at the desired location. This dot serves as a starting point for the pigment, allowing it to immediately penetrate the skin and become packed in that area. However, due to the nature of the technique, there is a risk of smudging. This is because we hold the needle while applying the pigment, and as we continue working in the same place, there is a high likelihood of creating a blot. To prevent this, we take another line, slowly inserting the needle and then smoothly transitioning into a new line. By following this approach, we can achieve a seamless flow from one line to another, using the dots and blots as a guide. Once I have completed this section, I can proceed based on my own judgment, as there are no specific rules governing this process. The key is to find a convenient and effective method within the given parameters of the task. We learn to stretch the skin right away, of course, on artificial leather. There is no need to stretch it because it is already maximally stretched for us. But a living person will definitely look much worse if we don't stretch the skin. Then these lines lead to me and remind me of the importance of skin stretching. I refrain from removing the needle from the skin. Instead, I calmly draw lines. The main thing is to maintain composure and avoid fear. There is no need to rush. We execute each step meticulously and with unhurried precision. We proceed to paint the entire surface, ensuring thorough coverage, followed by a gentle wipe with Vaseline to enhance the final result. Now let's incorporate a small strip at this particular spot. As we insert the needle into the skin, we visualize its movement like that of a pendulum, carefully navigating to the desired area. I cautiously penetrate the skin, making sure to control the depth, and then withdraw the needle, creating precise strokes. This process resembles the rotation of a spinning guillotine blade, mirroring the motion of our tattoo machine. I repeat this technique, delicately entering and exiting the skin, maintaining a steady rhythm. To ensure optimal hygiene, we diligently clean and sterilize the needles as frequently as possible, prioritizing the safety and well-being of our clients. Because currently it is fake leather, there is a large amount of Vaseline present here, in order to avoid any mistakes or damage to the task at hand. When applying Vaseline to a real person, I use a smaller amount because it is enough to apply a thin film, which is already sufficient for their needs. I cannot provide any info about artificial leather, so we often rinse the needle. Currently, we have new obstacles to overcome. We have a line that is not on our side, meaning we can't bring it to us or send it away. Now in practice, everything will become clearer. Since it's fake leather, anyone would naturally grab it, turn it, and run their finger along that seam, of course, toward themselves. However, in this situation, we are practicing, and you can't instantly turn a person into a replica of yourself like that, because it could be the hand, could be the back, could be some other body part, and we won't be able to turn around, or rather turn a person around. So we have the ability to change our space on our own, just like our own place in space, and make adjustments to align ourselves with the line. And don't forget, one steamship, one line. With other lines, it's easier for us here. I can already handle them calmly, either towards me or away from me. And there's also a moment of how to hold the machine. I hold the machine specifically by the holder. There are people who hold it at the moment by the strips, by the tip, by the plastic tip of the cartridge. That is, they can move it with their finger. I hold onto the holder. And in the lines, the most important thing is to fix the hand so that we have support. By stretching the skin, I'm putting pressure on it. Of course, I don't need such emphasis on diagonal leather here. So here I just fix my hand so that I have it. So basically, I'm fixated on one thing. I can't just take this line and go for a walk like that. This is going to be janky, so fixing it under one line. We are all set now. We even tried it on a turned off machine. That's how it is, yeah, I'll draw this line here. I turned everything on, did everything. That is, you can aim with the first one. No one will scold you for that. The main thing is that everything should be without mistakes, so you can aim at the strip in advance. Also, you can trace the contours at low voltage, but on the condition that you also need to slow down your hand and move slowly. And at high voltage, we just move faster with our hand. Now I'll show you visually. Now there will be a small voltage. We are filling the paint. And we lead this strip at a low voltage very slowly. Now we wipe the remaining strip. I will finish it at a high voltage, of course. The hand motor skills will be much faster. I set a high voltage and lead the strip even faster. You can use both options. It's purely an individual thing that is calculated based on hand motor skills and the machine you are working with. But still, the first option at a low voltage is more traumatic because we lead the line for too long. There can be too many hits in one place because we slow down. Therefore, you need to find a golden mean so that the voltage is not too high and not too low, and to make one line in one pass. So adjust to the device you are working with, and then there will be no problems. And also, when I start a new job on a person, I take some uninformative area of work and just make a small scratch on it, so to speak, aiming at the skin to understand what type of skin it is, soft, dry, and how to work with it. That's why I choose some less informative area and just make a kind of preliminary outline on it so we understand the rules of the game and then proceed. With these abilities, we will manage the remaining tasks. You gotta keep in mind that the older a person gets, the thinner their skin becomes. So you gotta handle it more delicately. Be more attentive and extremely careful. And women's skin is much more delicate than men's. And again, it also depends on the area of the skin. If, let's say, this will be a bend of the elbow for us, then the skin there will be very delicate, so we will be very, very careful there. You can also include the neck, ribs, or any part of the body where the skin is extremely thin. We finished with the outlines on the rose, now we just need to paint it. If you're into that kind of format where we jazz it up, add some shadows, write in the comments, and then this video won't keep you waiting for long. Now let's check what we have. If you have any questions, ask in the comments, I'll gladly answer. Also, ensure to subscribe to the Boost, to the Telegram channel, I'll be happy to see you there.